Welcome back to the Leaderonomics show. We're still here with Marleen. Marleen, we were just talking about GE and Richard Branson. One cute question, like when Branson goes, does Virgin go?
This is a very interesting topic of the leadership and leadership succession in firms. This is the big question for the Virgin group for a while now, and that applies also to many
family-owned businesses.
Family-owned businesses, yeah.
And we see that, right? Quite often when the father goes, the entire business sort of flounders, right?
Yes. Well, I think we have to have a little bit of a nuanced view about this, because companies pop up and die every moment, and that is also good. That's part of a process of renewal.
Right.
So I don't think it's necessarily true that family business, crumble or die earlier than any other business. So there's this kind of a logical cycle. It's true that many family businesses don't make it past the third generation. Only about 10 to 15% do. Yep. That's, I think, the same for Asian or American businesses alike. Of course, the issue of succession is very important. Yep. Because if you want to the family members to be the managers, the leaders, that means that you need to have talent in the family, and talent is not always automatic. Right. So that makes the succession issue quite difficult in families.
Right.
Yes.
But some families are successful in developing this talent seamlessly, it seems to be. I mean, GE is another one that regardless of what it is, there's always talent that's oozing off from them. How do they do that?
Yeah, so of course the GE is a professional firm, and they have very active talent development.
Right, but I mean, we've seen family businesses that do that too.
I think what you see more and more is that families hire professional managers, and there are different roles that family members can take. One is to be an owner, and the other one is to be a manager. Right. Not necessarily do they have to take both roles. So the management can, for example, be done by a professional manager. Right. So if there's not a suitable candidate for succession, this model can also be followed. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. You're also an economist, right? Somewhat.
I'm not an economist. I'm a business person.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, in light of what's happened in the world today, with all the banks crumbling, and I mean, what's your take on all this? I mean, how it all transpired, and how quickly the world has just changed from a very happy to a very gloomy situation.
Yes. Yeah, it has come very unexpected for most of us. I think we were quite convinced that this idea of the American capitalist model was the best solution that we had. Right. And now suddenly there are cracks in this model, and we've become very clear about the disadvantages of it. So I think it's up to many countries to redefine their version of capitalism, and to avoid some of the excesses that we've seen come out in the crisis. Yes.
And what do you think caused some of this to happen in such a big way?
Yeah, I think when it's a crisis like this, it's always a complex,
you just
coming together of
So
one of the reasons that people talk about a lot these days is corporate greed. So when people work more for themselves and their own money rather than for the good of the company or the good of the country. Now this is an interesting thing when you talk about economies that are dominated by family business, because family business generally don't have this type of mentality. Because family business have a very long-term view, and they're able to put their values
embed
first.
That into the account.
Exactly. Yes. So I don't think you will find family business going into this type of direction.
Yeah, but I mean, family business still, the appeal of a family business is ultimately greed, right? I mean, they want to get as much money. I mean, that's part of the issues that have cropped up in some of the earlier, in '97 and so on, in some of these family businesses.
Yeah, I think the advantage of family business is a long-term horizon. And what we've seen in the American-style capitalism is an even shorter horizon all the time. Yeah, so we're looking at a quarterly statement, we're looking at today's stock prices, and I think family business is more about generational wealth preservation. So that offers a totally different perspective on how you run a business.
So is that things that the US and Europe or the Western world can learn from our countries here in Asia?
Okay, that's definitely a very good question, and a very interesting question at this time. Yes, because we know that the American model doesn't have a monopoly on the right morals,
That's
let's
right.
say.
Yep.
So it is now time that everybody comes together and we try to design some best practices that other cultures also feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
And Asia has been growing economically for the last few decades,
right.
especially China.
And India,
and India, yes, correct. So there are many lessons to be learned, I think.
What would be 1 or 2 lessons, if you know, right at the top of your head?
Oh, it would be hard to say, but I think that well, we see a very big difference in the role of the state as guiding economic development, which is a much more prominent role in most of Asian economies, and we don't see that in the US. So I think what we may see is a little bit the revival of the government, if you will.
If there's anything else.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll see that in the US at least.
At least, and also more controlling effect of the government on the private sector. So those are perhaps some things we can learn.
Fantastic. I'm just gonna end with a couple of quick questions. First, I'm going to ask you, what would be one piece of advice you give to a person who has a family business?
Okay, that's a good question. I think don't be afraid to hire professional managers, but do define your role well if you do, because the role of a manager and the role of an owner are quite different, yes.
And there can be contentiousness.
I think I see successful family businesses managing those roles quite well.
Fantastic. So, okay, what if I'm a young person that just graduated out of school? And I'm coming into this recessionary world, what advice would you give me?
Yes, that's also a very good question, because many of my students are facing this this issue at the moment. I think there's a tendency for people to go and do whatever is available, but I would like to say follow your passion. Because if you do what you are really good at and what you're passionate about, you will find a place in this world to do it. So don't be so demotivated by the environment. Yes.
Anyway, recession's all cyclical, right?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you so much.
Okay.